Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Don't say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues.
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where we're dames, which means we are chicks, which means that we sometimes like chick flicks. I am Lauren Humphries Brooks, and with me, as always, is Karen Peterson. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
So before we get going on our very chick flick, that we're talking about today, extremely chick flick, an extreme chick flick. How are you doing, Karen?
Chickest of flicks.
The chickest of flicks. The flick of, no, that doesn't work. I won't say that. How are you, Karen?
Oh, yes, that's how I am.
Everything's fine.
It's fine. I know we always plug our patrons at the end of the show, but I just want to say I am grateful this week, especially for our patrons that do help pay our bills so that we don't have to rely on corporate advertising, because I don't want to be silenced for anything I may think or say or do.
It's such a weird thing, because even before we started recording I had this moment of just like, oh, we better be careful what we say. It's just like no one cares about us. Like they really don't. Right. So we can say anything pretty much.
We're not dependent on an FCC license. That's one of the beautiful things about podcasting on the internet.
But yeah, like right now it's very, I mean, none of it. I wish I could say I was surprised. I'm not at all. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, the thing is that even in a podcast space, we were deeply affected one time when I shared an opinion that a bunch of people didn't like. I don't know if you remember, but when I wrote my review of Joker 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we got review bombed by people who absolutely never watched the show, and our podcast never recovered. Our listener numbers never came back up because of that.
Yeah, and that was over Joker, which I'm sorry, if
over a stupid movie.
if anyone who's still listening to us, like, it remembers that, just like that was the stupidest fucking thing. But it was also like, I mean, that was when we were all on Twitter. Spending a lot of time on Twitter. I mean, I eventually left Twitter for a couple of different reasons, but one of the big ones was honestly, I was just like, I got like PTSD from Twitter. Not like, not like I'm waking up in cold sweats in the middle of the night kind of thing, but literally, like, it seriously affected me. The film Twitter, the amount of hate that you got just for like, sometimes just for saying what I would consider to be very innocuous things, right? And so this it absolutely does affect you. And
the other night I was at a screening for the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, One Battle After Another, and all I could think during the Q&A, which had Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro and Chase Infinity, Sean Penn was there, and all I could think through that whole Q&A was, that motherfucker created a burner account and went after us on Twitter because of what we said about licorice pizza.
That's true.
And then he was at Q&As that year bragging about how he made burner accounts and went after people on Twitter. And I was just like, yeah, so that you did that to us. Like, what a loser.
I do just want to raise, like, do you kind of want to raise your hand and be like, I have a question about the fact that you made a burner account on Twitter and attacked a very small, like, podcast? Can you talk about that? Because your movie Licorice Pizza sucked and you're a sexist pig. Fuck you.
Yeah, so anyways,
but no,
I don't miss Twitter either.
But I mean, there's all of that stuff. There's a huge I mean, God, I like some of the shit that was said around stuff that very early when the stuff about Devin Faraci came out, and like there were all of these factions, and like, and I'm certain that it still exists in its own form. I'm certain that it's there on Blue Sky. I'm not on Blue Sky either. I'm certain that it's there on Blue Sky. I'm certain that it's still there in its own form on Twitter. I'm just not in the midst of that. But yeah, it's like that kind of behavior and harassment and just saying the wrong thing. And again, having an opinion. So saying like writing a review of the Joker, like that's a totally normal thing to do. That people do. But you had the wrong opinion about it, according to some people. I mean, I know that some of my tweets wound up on MRA websites. I got attacked by Sonny Bunch for saying, I don't even remember what I said, but it was just like, it was a random thing. And like, and then I was suddenly getting I had to lock my account. I was suddenly getting all of this like response from people that I didn't know, that like I'd never heard of. I was just like, what is going on? And then I literally just Googled my own Twitter handle and found out like, oh, I'd been linked on all of these like MRA websites.
Oh, geez. I remember one time my old blog from years ago, I wrote something about a Disney movie, and it was critical of certain characters in the movie, and somehow my article ended up on Reddit.
See, yeah.
And that's not a place you want to end up.
No, particularly not as a female film critic.
No.
We've even talked about it on this podcast of like the most terrifying thing in the world after a while was going viral on Twitter. It was like, no, please don't retweet me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's horrible, right? Like because you want people to read your reviews, you want people to respond to you and engage with you and everything. And to actually be in a situation where like on a social media site, you're scared of that. Like, and so, and this again, we're small potatoes when it comes to all of this. And
it's
it's not surprising though. What I started this out with was, it's not surprising to me, like that Jimmy Kimmel says something that is really innocuous, like really, of all of the things that have been said about Charlie Kirk and about MAGA, etc., what Kimmel actually said on air was really fucking innocuous.
It wasn't even about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
He played a video of how Trump reacted to a question about Charlie Kirk. So the arguments, it's such bad faith. The people who are like just cheering about Jimmy Kimmel, it's because we have a president who's so thin-skinned that he cannot handle any criticism of himself. And what does that sound like to you? Who does that remind you of?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going after comedians, you're going after people who are just like, and again, very innocuous stuff.
Last night, I came across an article from the New York Times, February of 1939, about Goebbels silencing artists, and particularly 5 comedians.
Oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing: in 5 or 10 years, a lot of these companies and a lot of these pundits, et cetera, are going to pretend none of this ever happened. Yep. Like that's the other thing. Like I did actually make a post.
I mean, take them that long.
I mean, yeah. I'm like putting it on the outside, so I'm saying 5 or 10 years. Like, yeah, probably 2 years. No, I made a post not that long ago about, because I was just like, I want to look up sort of the history of HUAC, right, the House on American Activities Committee, and the McCarthy trials and everything, and it's very similar. Like it's very much, and Hollywood very much capitulated to that. They didn't have to, but they did. People were arrested, people were imprisoned, people were blacklisted, graylisted. And that was the other thing, is that I think one of the ongoing horrors of the McCarthy era was not just the people whose livelihoods were actually destroyed, people who served jail time, things like that, but the culture of fear and of dismissal and of like, people pretending that they never knew some of their own friends. Because they were so afraid of being kind of caught up in it. And that was something that the Hollywood studios willingly participated in. And in fact, liked, because the McCarthy era comes post World War II, but it also comes after a number of major victories for unionization. And so the studios were like, oh, we've got everybody scared, basically.
Exactly.
Like, because the Communist Party in the United States was one of the forces behind some of those victories of unionization. And then suddenly it's like, well, we're literally gonna persecute people over this. And so, although I think that a lot of the comparisons between like Nazi Germany and what's going on right now, I think it's very much there, but it is just a totalitarian playbook. It's not that dissimilar from what went on in the Soviet Union under Stalin.
Right.
It's not that dissimilar from what went on in the United States with McCarthy.
Right.
Like,
yeah, no, it's totally true.
It's something that we should note, because I think we always jump to Nazi Germany, and there's nothing that's true. It's absolutely true. But what it is totalitarianism. And that's where a lot of this is coming from. And we did it too.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and we're going to talk about that for a brief moment in just a second. But one of the things I wanted to say is that it is tricky being in a creator space like we are, because there's you have to play the game if you want to build an audience. And it's just part of it. You and we're totally content to be just a little podcast where we just get together every week, watch a movie and talk about it. And we're not looking to be big stars, but anybody who wants to build something really big, they have to play this stupid game, and that's the world that we're living in.
Well, we're talking before we started recording about the issue of like, people canceling Disney Plus and Hulu and stuff like that. And the fact that, one of the things that I'm hesitant about, because I still have Hulu, it's one of the few streaming services I have consistently. Drives me crazy. Like, why, Disney? Why?
Yeah.
I actually subscribe to you regularly. It's not like Netflix where I'll start and stop because the British Bake Off is on or not. No, but like, so we were talking about that Abbott Elementary is coming back, and that this is it's a fantastic show. Like you say, it's written and showrun by a Black woman. It is incredibly progressive, but it's on ABC, and it's on Hulu. That's where I watch it. And so it's like, okay, I want to support that, but I don't want to support Disney and ABC. And one of the horrible things within all of this is that, all of this is wrapped up. It's like, if you begin actually reading some of this, just like, okay, we've got Paramount over here as well. We've got HBO and WB, and then they might be merging with Paramount because David Zaslav is a fucking moron. But you've got, so it's so hard to extricate that. And you've got a lot of creative people in that industry who are having to navigate it as well. It's like, well, how dare you, work with Disney? It's just like, well, of course they're working with Disney. You almost can't not work with Disney.
Right.
If
they own like 60% of the market, it's impossible to avoid them.
Yeah. And so it is like, just trying to find that balance. And it's impossible to, people talk about there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. And it's true. It's true. If you're going to in any way experience entertainment in this day and age, you are probably giving money to someone that you don't want to be. And so it's trying, and that includes people who are creatives within this industry and within other industries doing the same thing of like, they're like, I don't want to, but I have to. But, and then you get into that balance of what do you have to do and what do you want to do and how do you survive?
Exactly.
And there's no easy answer for it. So
it's true.
So now that we're done with that.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say, sorry, that I feel like we could just kind of jump in and talk about it. Well, maybe I should let you just start with what we're talking about.
No, go on. I want to hear what you have to say.
So, well, to your point about, Hollywood capitulating to McCarthyism and to the House Un-American activities and all of that. The movie that we're talking about today is a remake of a film from the 1930s. One of the writers was not available to help with the remake because he was blacklisted. And that is Donald Ogden Stewart. He wrote Love Affair, which came out in 1939.
1939, yeah.
30, yeah.
39.
But then he was blacklisted in 1950.
There you go.
So
That's the thing with the blacklist. I don't think people fully realize what a ripple effect it had. Not just on individuals, but on the entire industry. And the sort of the way that the 1950s were shaped, 1950s and into the 60s were shaped, and the way that Hollywood itself was shaped by that, and the mistrust that was fostered within it as well.
Well, and by extension, that shapes all of us, because we are influenced by the things that we see, and how much of our culture was defined by silencing anybody with a opinion that didn't match with what was approved at the time.
Well, and encouraging people to betray their friends and to, in order to protect themselves, right? And you get people like Sterling Hayden and Elia Kazan and what's his name, Edward Dmytryk, who was, I think, one of the Hollywood 10, and then kind of
Dalton Trumbo. Yeah,
Dalton Trumbo. Dmytryk is interesting because he backtracked. He actually did, like, he said, I will name names, and they gave him a reduced jail sentence. And again, it's like, and you can say like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. It's just like, but in the midst of it, it's kind of like, yeah, you have a choice, right? And you're talking about livelihood, you're talking about survival.
And that's just it. There's only so many people who are able to just say, you know what, I'm going to put my foot down. I want nothing to do with this, and I won't help you. Not everybody's in a position to be able to do that.
And not everybody, and it's what you're willing to say no to, and also the consequences that you're able to take or willing to take. And then it had knock-on effect, and you have people like Elia Kazan who then spent the rest of their careers basically trying to justify themselves for why they did it.
Right.
And it's something that I think we don't take enough into account, because this was the reality of the United States in the 1950s. And I do think it's interesting that, because we're talking about a film made in the 1950s, I think it's interesting that at this period, this is also kind of the time that a lot of right-wing, far-right people currently really want to go back to that sort of image of the 1950s, right? Where men were the corporate breadwinners and women were the stay-at-home wives, and you've got 2.5 children. Black people did not exist except as servants. Gay people really didn't exist.
Right.
But that's the image and the idealized image that a lot of like contemporary conservatives really seem to want to go back to. And it never existed, but it was something that Hollywood sold to the world and sold to, particularly to American culture. And at the same time, you have stuff like the Blacklist going.
Yeah. I mean, I asked somebody recently, we were talking, the good old days. And I'm like, good old days for who? And they couldn't come up with an answer that they realized didn't make them sound racist and homophobic,
Well, it's the image. It really didn't exist, including for the people that were like in the most perfect positions for it. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, and in fact, I just said that about Hollywood in the 1950s. There are also a lot of Hollywood films made in the 1950s that are about how miserable people are in this, like, the man in the gray flannel suit kind of thing. How terrible this actually is.
Women were not excited to get vacuum cleaners for Christmas. They weren't.
Yeah, but it's just that image, that Leave It to Beaver image.
Exactly.
And that's what people are nostalgic for. And that is, by the way, one of the things the totalitarian regimes also reinforce. The Nazis created nostalgia for a time period in Germany that never existed. That they had a whole, both in cinema and you've got like the mountain films, everything like that. They created this idea of this halcyon past that did not exist, but it was really attractive. It was like, oh yeah, we need to get back to that, right? It was never actually a thing, never. But very attractive. So let's talk about An Affair to Remember.
Let's do.
So
set in the 1950s.
Set in the 1950s. It was directed by Leo McCarey. It's actually a remake. and as you said, of Love Affair, a 1939 film that starred Irene Dunne and Charles Boyer in similar roles. And actually, An Affair to Remember is very, very close in terms of a remake. Like, it pretty much does it beat for beat. Only it's a much better film. And I think it's a better film because of Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr.
Well, obviously. Well, and that's the thing, like the scenes are shot for shot almost identical, but they change some things about the characters themselves. And so that's where I think and then yeah, plugging Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr into those roles, it's like this became the movie that it should have been in 1939.
Yeah, it raises the film. And I also think that it's shot in CinemaScope. It's got this sort of emotional lift to it. Like, it's self-indulgent in a lot of ways, but it's very much like those 1950s melodramas. But done so well that it really does work. So you're very much invested, even as the film gets increasingly melodramatic and kind of hits some of these soap opera beats, right? At the same time, you're just like, yes, but it's so emotional. Like, it's very, very good at just kind of hitting that sumptuousness, that romance, that and yet at the same time kind of grounding it and making it feel like these are real people at some level, and that the emotional underpinnings of it really are real or feel authentic.
Yeah.
So this is for anyone who's not seen Affair to Remember, first of all, go watch it because we're going to spoil the shit out of it. This is about Nicky Ferranti, played by Cary Grant, who's a well-known playboy. Big surprise. A ladies' man, and he meets Terry McKay, played by Deborah Kerr, while they're on a transatlantic ocean liner going from Europe to New York. He is returning to New York so that he's going to marry an heiress, and the whole film opens with people talking about, oh, he's this great playboy, and he's being taken off the market. And so they meet and they fall in love over the course of this trip across the Atlantic. And it's a really, I think that it's a great development, I think, of their romance, the way that the romance develops over time and how believable it becomes by the time they're leaving this ship. It doesn't feel unnatural or forced in any way. So Karen, what are your just overall thoughts on Affair to Remember? Anything you would talk about?
All the things I want to talk about, because I love this movie so much, but just kind of going into the beginning of it, I had not watched it in a while. And so I forgot that it opens with these newscasts from kind of around the world. You have the American broadcaster, you've got someone in Italy, someone in London, all with different levels of interest in the story, but all three are men telling this as a news item that Nicky Ferranti is off the market. And I just think that's so interesting because, for one thing, men love to claim that women are the gossips, but they are just as bad about it as we are. But I think it really does, in very short order, just kind of establish what a big deal this is that he's engaged, and what a big deal that these two meeting on this 4 or 5 day ocean crossing, how big and how important that is. And I really like this introduction. We meet him before we meet him, and we know that it's Cary Grant, so we can understand why this is such a big news item, I love the British broadcaster getting all like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess this is newsworthy, I guess. Like, he's totally disinterested.
Here's a rather choice little tidbit. Like, yeah, so
funny.
It's so overemphasized. Like, you've also got the Italian one who's like $500 milioni di dollari. And she's just like, oh my God, mamma mia. Like, yeah, like, it's so overemphasized. And so, like, obviously, comedic.
Yeah.
It's but you're right. Like, it does establish also like, because throughout their voyage, like one of the issues that they run into is people keep on seeing them together, even though they're not having an affair, they're not sleeping together, right? They are just like hanging out basically, but because he's so famous, people are like taking pictures of them, they're trying to listen to them. There's a whole scene where they're like, okay, we have to just not hang out with each other because obviously this is just going to make both of us look bad. So they're seated in the dining room at separate tables, but they have their backs to each other, and the entire dining room is watching and giggling at this, right? So it does kind of establish very quickly that this is he's like Paris Hilton basically.
Right.
So imagine if Paris Hilton were, met someone on an ocean voyage, and how much scrutiny there would be on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think overall, just like to go back to your question, I think overall, I just really, I love this movie because it is, and I know you put this in our notes, but it is a mature love story about two grown-ups who aren't looking for each other. It just kind of happens. And well, she tries to fight it. He doesn't really. She tries to fight it, but it's just it's sometimes when your chemistry with somebody is that strong, you just really can't. And I love these two characters and how passionate and how just wonderful that they both are. And I really appreciate that we're not meeting Nicky Ferranti as this like playboy. We're meeting him where he's essentially been tamed, and so we never see him. There's obviously that conversation with him and one of his girlfriends,
Gabriella.
Gabriella, but we don't see that side of him. We get to see what she sees in him. We get to see what's Kerr's character's name? Oh my gosh, I just Terry, thank you. I think I forget because she doesn't seem like a Terry, but anyway, but we get to see him the way she sees him from the beginning, and I think that that's such a smart choice.
I agree, and I think that we get at the beginning where he's very charming. He's picking her up basically, like he's lost his cigarette case, right, and she's found it, and that's how they meet. And he picks her up, and there's definitely like this, he's sort of like, oh, we can have a bit of fun during the voyage. And so there's this scene in her cabin, right? And she basically tells him no by like, and she's not rude about it particularly. And he's like, okay, yeah, all right. And then she gets left. She's like, you're embarrassed. And he's like, well, yeah, I kind of am. And but what I really like in that scene and then in the subsequent scenes is that they kind of get the sex aspect out of the way, right? She's told him no in no uncertain terms, and he's like, okay, and he's embarrassed by it, but he accepts it, right? He's like, okay, we're not doing that. That's fine. And then the rest of their relationship really is about this building of their friendship, and they are just drawn to each other. They get that sort of flirtatious his reputation and all of that, they kind of get that out of the way, and it becomes about that friendship developing. And then by the time that they do actually like realize, oh, we're falling in love, right? And he even says like, oh, we've changed our course. Like this is something that's very different. And he's much more like willing to follow that. But he also recognizes why she would be resistant to it. And she asks him like, please don't come around, and he's like, okay, I won't. So there's this wonderful kind of back and forth where they both understand that this has turned into something that that is no longer simply friendship, but that also isn't purely sexual. And that's where you get this wonderful the real development of their love story, and the depth of it too, because she's kind of like, oh, you're just a playboy. And then the more she gets to know him, and particularly when she meets his grandmother, and when she begins to learn more and more about him, she realizes this is someone who's actually very complex, who, the grandmother talks about him, everything comes too easily to him. And the difficulty that underlies that of like, oh, everything comes, so he can't hold on to anything. He's always pursuing the next thing. And Terry seems to be something that has grounded him and has made him want to be different and to really pursue his relationship with her.
Yeah. And I think that's part of where the maturity of this
Yeah.
film really shines, is in the fact that she's not taming this guy, you know, this ladies man. She's not taming him. She's offering, well, not even offering, but she's showing him another way. Like, by the fact that they don't just automatically, you know, jump into bed together, which is something that he's very used to. It's not even about playing games. She's not playing games with them. She's very serious that she's with somebody else. He's with somebody else. This is not going to happen. And he accepts that. But I think it's also something that really is what draws him to her, because, like you say, because it's not something that comes easily, and it's not even something that he has to work for. It's just more that it's showing him that like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Like, it's not just that he can be resisted. It's more of just that there's more to life. Like, it's not just about sex, and love is not that's an important part of a relationship, but it's not the only thing, and it's not the only or even most important part. And they have this connection, and the fact that she does put that barrier down, that boundary of, we're not going to do this, it gives him the opportunity to get to know somebody in a way that he's never had before.
Yeah, it allows them to be friends. It allows them to, like, and you do get the sense that he's probably never actually been friends with a woman before in his life, right? Because it's been about this pursuit, right? And I think that's, in referencing what the grandmother says, is that everything comes easily to him. It's that, so it doesn't, it's not ultimately satisfying, because it is there, and it's not about, like, sexually satisfying. It's about, there isn't depth behind it.
Exactly.
It's too easy, and it isn't, like you say, it's not that there's no impression throughout that he is pursuing her to get her into bed. It's more that he kind of keeps on wanting to get to know her because he likes her, like, because she's an interesting person, and the more they get to know each other, the more interesting they find one another. Because he's kind of left behind. Like, he's like, okay, we're not gonna sleep together, but we keep on getting together. Basically, they want to have dinner, they want to hang out, they want to go places together, they want to do all these things together. Like, well, we should just, like, enjoy that.
Yeah, and later when you do meet his fiance, they get along well, but you can see from her that she's somebody who just, she kind of, she accepts this about, like, who he is. She just accepts that he just kind of runs around, and it's not that she's like, oh yeah, that's fine to keep doing that, but I think part of the reason that he marries her, besides the fact that she's an heiress, is going to marry her, is the fact that she kind of just accepts him for who he is. She doesn't seem to have a lot of expectations for him. That's also part of why he's drawn to Terry, because she clearly does, and he needs that.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about this film, actually, is that it doesn't vilify their significant others in any way.
At all.
Like, they're not represented as being bad people, as being jerks, they're not comic relief. Like, they're perfectly good, decent people, right?
They're not even jealous, really.
Yeah, they're just not right for these two people. They're not, this is just, it is that sense that it's just kind of like, this relationship is fine. It's not a great relationship, it's not a bad relationship, it's just a fine relationship. But the relationship that Terry and Nikki have with each other is something else entirely. And that's and again, I do think it's about that depth, and the depth of the connection that develops between the two of them. And the willingness to sacrifice, as well. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I'm sorry. There's a beautiful conversation between Nikki and Terry when they're still on the boat, and he asks her, are you in love with him? Because they're talking like, oh, is she going to be at the dock waiting for you? Yeah. Is he going to be there? Yeah. And Nikki asks her, are you in love with him? And she says, she stops and thinks about it for a moment, and she says, I'm not now. And the thing is, what I really love about that and the way that she delivers that line is that I don't feel like this week on this boat is why she doesn't love her fiance anymore, or her, I don't even know if they're engaged, but why she doesn't love him. It's she's realizing that she hasn't for a while, that relationship ran its course, but she's just still been going along with it because it's what she knows. And I really like that you get to that without having to go really like you don't need a lot of dialogue to communicate that. She's able to do so much with just a line and just a wistful look on her face, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think in terms of their relationships, I think they've both been kind of kept people, right? And Terry, in fact, talks about the fact that her relationship with, I can't even remember his name, poor guy, Ken, played by Richard Denning. So sorry, Richard Denning, you're so unmemorable in this movie. They put you opposite Cary Grant. It's not your fault.
He knows.
That's kind of his role, right? He's a perfectly nice guy. But like, so she even talks early on, you know, she's kind of telling Nikki about this guy, and she was a singer in a club, and then he came in at one point, and you feel like it's kind of like the this is really convenient sort of thing of like, oh, you don't belong in a place like this, and he like sets her up in an apartment on Park Avenue, with a breathtaking view of the East River, and so like she's been kept, right? And the whole purpose, as she even says, is she's learned art and literature and all of these things so that eventually she's going to make someone a great wife. She's going to make him a great wife. Yeah. And that's been kind of the purpose of her life for the past few years. And she talks about the fact that, you know, these are things that she likes. She, you know, she's wanted this. She hasn't had to work anymore. She hasn't had to do anything anymore. She gets everything given to her. But she really is not satisfied in that. And she even says, like, you know, the reason when she was on this voyage is because he was dealing with some big merger, and he didn't want her along because she doesn't have a good head for things like that. And she even tells Nikki, like, oh, it's not that he thinks that I'm stupid. She like has to reassure herself. Just like, it's not that, it's just that I just don't understand how companies work, things like that. And you're like, yeah, this is not a relationship where she is an equal in any way, or this is a very sort of very straightforward. It's a relationship that she's like, okay, this is fine. Like, she gets a lot of the things that she wants, but it's not ultimately fulfilling. And that part of the fulfillment that both of them feel is that they both decide that they want to work for this relationship. They are going to stop kind of living off of other people and actually become who they feel they want to be, so that he is, you know, he even says, like, I want to be able to support her. She goes back to work in a club. Like, they're like, we're going to, you know, as equal as you're going to get in the 1950s, basically, they're going to try to create this relationship where they come to each other on an even footing. And that seems to be, it's an incredibly important element of the story.
There's a few things that I want to comment on. I should probably have written notes down so I remember what I want to say. But the first is when the two of them are saying goodbye and they're making their plans as the boat is docking, and they decide, okay, we're gonna take 6 months. He's gonna go do his thing. She's gonna go do her thing. They're gonna end their relationships, and they're gonna meet back in 6 months at the top of the Empire State Building. And what I like about that is that it's not, well, you know, maybe one of us will come and we'll see what happens. This is their plan, that they will do this in 6 months. They're giving each other 6 months to go sort their stuff out and be ready to get together. That is exactly what they intend. You know, like, I know there's movies like Before Sunrise, where at the end of the movie, they have this moment at the train, like, oh, we're gonna, you know, we'll meet back here in 6 months and see what happens, and then, in later movies you find out what did happen 6 months later, but it's sort of this like, maybe we'll see. But for Terry and Nikki, this is the plan. They're going to meet in 6 months. It's not just maybe, maybe we'll get there. Although she does leave him with, if one of us isn't able to go, then we'll know it was for a really good reason. And so that's kind of what she leaves him with. But the expectation is this is a plan. This isn't a wish. This is a plan. And I really like that.
Yeah. They're both in. They're both all in kind of thing. But they have things that they have to work out on their own without each other. Right. And that they can't really work out and be together, and like actually probably damage their relationship if they tried to do it. They have to sort out these other relationships. They have to sort out the fact that he doesn't have a job, right? Like he can't, he does not have any way of supporting her. She doesn't have any way of supporting him if it came to it. They both have to sort that out before they're able to get together.
Exactly. And then the other piece that I wanted to also mention is, as they're sorting that out, I really love the way that these two relationships are handled. I really like, especially with Terry and Ken, I really like how it's the day she just got off the boat, or maybe it's a few days later. It's not totally clear how long it is, but she's back at her apartment. He comes over. There's a TV program on. It's Nikki and his fiance being interviewed by one of the same newscasters from the beginning of the movie. And it's, a conversation about their upcoming wedding. And she doesn't have to tell Ken, I fell in love with this guy on the boat. He starts asking her like, oh, wait, that's right. You guys were both on the same ship. Like, did you meet him? And he starts putting it together by what she says and what she doesn't say. And they don't have a big fight about it. They don't even have really a big conversation. He just understands that their relationship has run its course and that she has figured this out, and that's kind of it. And then they're just done. And I think that it again, to the point you made before, it really shows the maturity of all of these adults, that Ken wants to be happy too. He wants someone who loves him just as much as she does. And he's not going to fight if she's not feeling that. He's not going to fight her and force her to stay. And I really like that. And he remains her friend. Also, he supports her. He and he's very clear, like, I'm in love with you. Like he continues to say that if you want me, I'm here. But he also doesn't force himself on her. He is there to help her and he is there to care about her, but there's not really an ulterior motive there. He's not going like, oh, if I just behave like this, she's gonna, want to be with me instead. But he's very clear, like, if you want me, I'm here. He says, I really hope you found happiness, and if you're ever in need of anything, like someone to love you, don't hesitate to call me. Yeah. And it's very honest, and it is very mature. The entire film is very mature about romantic relationships. And again, I think it's part of what sets it apart from a lot of romantic comedies, both in this period and in like a contemporary period, where so many romantic comedies are just or romances generally are like, oh, here are two attractive people that we're going to put together, they're going to fall in love with each other because they're two attractive people, right? And you don't get that depth, you don't get that maturity, you get sort of manufactured conflicts and jealousies and things like that. And this is just much more like, for all of the kind of ridiculous lengths that this movie does go to, which I think we'll talk about in a minute, it still feels so realistic. And I think that that's why it has become so enduring, and why, honestly, why at the end of this film I'm always crying. Oh my gosh, because it feels real. Like as silly as some of the things that happen are, it still feels true to life, like real, like the emotions are true. And that goes a really long way. Yeah, it really does. Last night while I was watching this, I was really thinking about the fact that, people kind of lament, oh, we don't have good romantic comedies anymore. And what I was thinking about was like, well, all of our romance movies, they try to make comedies, and comedy is very subjective and hard to do. So yeah, there's not a lot of good romantic comedies, but I think the bigger problem is that we just don't have romance movies anymore.
Yeah, and I think that there's an attitude that genuine romance in cinema is cringy in some way. That because there does have to be something that's genuine and earnest. It can't be cynical. It can't approach this as a joke, really. That's the way that you really get and it can be ridiculous, and ridiculous things can happen. Soap opera shit can happen. But if the emotions are there, people believe it, and it really affects you emotionally. I've said it before, and I don't want to keep on coming back to it, but Our Flag Means Death actually does this really, really well. The emotions are real. The emotions are real. And that's something that we need in any romantic story in cinema, even if it's a secondary romance, right? So you've got to believe that these two people are going to fall in love with each other, and that those emotions that they feel as extreme, like they could be in outer space, and it's still believable.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about An Affair to Remember is so many rom-coms, so many romance movies. It's like the central conflict could be, and this movie is no exception to this point, but then I'll expand on it. But like most of the time, the conflict can be resolved if the two main characters just would sit down and talk. And that is also true of An Affair to Remember. The thing that this movie does well, that a lot of movies get wrong, though, is it gives you an understandable reason why they don't sit and talk. Like, they're wrong. They're both wrong. They're both proud, and that is why. But you understand it from both of them.
Oh, yeah. It drives me crazy. The second half of this movie drives me crazy. It's just like, just tell him, for fuck's sake. Just tell him what happened.
I understand his perspective way more than hers, but yeah.
Yeah, like he thinks that she just didn't show up. He thinks that the feelings that he had were not reciprocated in the same way, that she just decided against showing up.
And it wrecks him because this is the only woman he's ever really been in love with.
Yeah, and it's something that he struggles with so much. It's not that he hasn't won or something. That's that he's in love with her and she just does not show up. So yeah, his feelings and the reason why he doesn't want to even talk to her, I completely get. Her, I'm just like, girl, for God's sake, just tell him what happened. That's all you have to. You just have to tell him what happened. That's all you need to do. And he'll understand. She's
definitely wrong here.
Well, she is, but you're right. Like, it's also understandable. Her characterization is understandable, and also there's a little bit of that. It's the 1950s. It's that kind of the stigmatism surrounding the fact that she's now disabled. Not stigmatism, stigma.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
So there's a little bit of that as well, but yeah, it's just basically like she doesn't, she even says, if I can't walk to him, and by walk I mean run, he'll never know. And it's not, I don't think it's ever implied that she thinks he won't love her. It's that she's embarrassed in some way, or she's ashamed, or she's like, she has to come to him as the woman that he remembers. And like, I'm trying to remember, I think there's even a line where she talks about like why because a number of people do actually ask that question, like, why don't you just tell him? He'll be, and she's like, at one point she does say, like, because he'll want to help, and I can't stand, like, it's like she can't stand the idea of him helping her.
I think it's, I know what line you're talking about, and I think she also says something about like he would just accept that she can't walk again. And I think for her, really, really what it comes down to is she needs to have him as a goal. Like, he's her motivation to keep going, to keep trying to regain her ability to walk. And she's gonna not let herself have him until she's able to do that, because if they get together and he just accepts that she's going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, then she's not going to continue working to walk again.
Yeah.
And I can't remember and I can't find exactly what the line is, but I think that's really what it comes down to.
I think that's a good point. And also maybe that she's afraid, and I don't think that this is just kind of extrapolation, maybe that she's afraid that he's going to pity her in some way and that it's not going to be honest.
Right.
And there is that little bit of fear, I think, that he's just not going to look at her in the same way, or that he's going to pity her and it won't be a genuine relationship after that. And of course it's horrifically unfair to him, because as far as he knows, she just didn't show up. So she just like breaks his heart.
Yeah. And it's so that's a question that I have for you is, does that occur to her? Like, does she just assume that because of the life he's lived that he's fine without her, and she just doesn't think that she's crushed him this way?
I think to a certain degree, maybe she doesn't realize how much she had the potential to hurt him. And like, maybe it's just something that she's not thinking about because she's dealing with so many other things for herself. But that I don't think that she realizes I don't think she realizes until that final scene how much she really hurt him. And that is, and even then it still drives me crazy. Just like, you're gonna let him walk out the door, don't you dare let him walk out the door. And of course she's not going to, because we know how the story ends, but still, just like, don't you dare, woman, don't you dare let him leave, you have to tell him what's happening.
I'm sorry, I have to do it. I have to quote Rita Wilson from Sleepless in Seattle when she's recounting the plot of this movie. I'm not going to do the whole scene, don't worry.
Okay.
But he doesn't even notice that she doesn't get up to say hello, and he's very bitter. And you know that he's just going to walk out the door and never know why. She's just lying there, on the couch with the blanket over her shriveled little legs. I love that scene because it's like she captures exactly how I'm feeling in that scene.
It's so true though, and I think like everything that builds up to that, and I think again that all of that emotional investment, all of that belief that this is a real love story, right? And we've seen his sort, like, honestly, this time around, one of the scenes that got me is where he goes back to his grandmother's villa, and she's passed away. And it's just him, and he's walking around the room and he's like hearing Terry singing because she sang the song. He's hearing his grandmother's music. He like touches the chairs where they both sat. It's first of all, it's a brilliant performance by Cary Grant. I think he does a great job at just portraying suffering so well. Like that romantic longing, basically. And that sense of loss, because he's grieving two people at that point. He's grieving the loss of this woman that he was in love with and that has just left him without any word or any reason. And he's grieving the loss of his grandmother, who is this major force in his life, and another woman that he really loved. And it's just that marrying of those two things, and it's so moving without being extreme. It doesn't go over the top. And part of that is in his performance, is that he's not like breaking down, crying, and cursing the gods or anything like that. It's very understated, and because it's so understated, it's really emotional. But then you get to that final scene. And it's so well done because he's so angry, legitimately so. Like, you're just like, yes, you should be angry, but you don't know why. You don't know why. And that entire scene, and then still, like, the part that just always gets me is when he finally puts it all together. And goes to look for the painting and sees the painting, and just the expression on his face. Again, Cary Grant, brilliant, as he just realizes everything. And he doesn't even know the whole story yet at that point, but he realizes, like, oh, this is what something else happened, right? It's just it's so moving.
I love the way this is all written, and I love the way that it is staged, because so Terry has someone who works for her who's coming in to help and is getting ready to leave. It's Christmas, and she's getting ready to leave. And so she goes and opens the door, and he's standing there. So right off the bat, Terry doesn't have to get up and go try to answer the door, because that there's somebody there to help her. And it's just it's basically a coincidence, but it just works out so well. And then he just comes in, the maid leaves, and he comes in, and then they start talking, and he starts talking about like, oh yeah, I didn't show up that day, it must have been horrible for you. And she's kind of playing along with it, but the more he talks, the more she's realizing that, like, he's basically saying like, oh yeah, you must have, how long did you wait? And she's like, oh, I don't know, oh, probably till midnight. And she's realizing that he really was there, and he's telling her what happened and what his experience was, and she's understanding it. And I really love the way that this plays out, because this is where she starts to understand what she's done to him. But then as he's gonna just leave, and she doesn't get up, she can't get up, and he's about to leave, and he's telling her the story, because he looks back and he sees her sitting on the couch looking up at her. He's given her the shawl that his grandmother wanted her to have, and he tells her, oh, I painted you like that. And he starts describing this painting. And as he's telling the story, something that we didn't see, that was not part of the film, of her finding the painting and buying it. But as he's describing, oh yeah, I didn't even sell that painting. I gave it away because this girl that came in to buy it was, and he's like realizing, wait, she was in a wheelchair. And that's when he puts it all together. And then when he goes into the bedroom, we don't see the painting on the wall. We see him looking at it, but we see it reflected in the mirror. So he and the painting are in the same shot. And there's another time they did that with her looking at the Empire State Building from her apartment. And I really like that shot, because it gives you much more of an opportunity to see just like the full, his expression, his emotions all in his face all at the same time. I really like that.
Oh yeah, it's very, very well staged. In fact, this entire film is well staged. One of my favorite moments is actually their first kiss, which we don't see.
Right.
Where like they're talking, and they know at that point, they're like, okay, they know, and they know that they're actually about to cross a line that they can't come back from. But what we see is like them descending the stairs. We just see the lower half of her body, and then he walks back up the stairs, and they're obviously kissing, but we don't actually see it, right? But there's just something so, like, there is that sense almost of, this is such an intense moment for both of them that even the audience can't see all of it, right? There's just like it's beautiful, it's beautifully done. And and you get similar things. So like the framing of that, where he's able to be in the same shot with the painting, we're able to see that reflection. And the fact that the painting itself is that he's painted her as a reflection of his grandmother, and the kind of the duality of that love, and everything. And then that's the point of revelation for him. And that's when she is finally like, she's not going to try to conceal it anymore. You know, and he turns around and he's just like, oh, all of that, like, you know, if it had to be one of us, why did it have to be you? And I'm sobbing. And she says, I was looking up, it was the nearest thing to heaven, you were there.
Well, and what's also so sad is like the scene where he was waiting there, you can hear the sirens, and he has no idea that it's her.
No, exactly. That one of the other lines that I love in that scene is like that'll think, oh yes, until midnight. And she's like, until midnight. And he said, yeah, in a thunderstorm. He's like, in a thunderstorm. You're just like, yeah, wait until midnight in a thunderstorm. That's what happened. Yeah. That must have been really hard for you.
Oh my gosh. Another line I love there's so many lines I love from this movie. But another line was when he first shows up, and because they had seen each other the night before at a show, and they just were both there, and she was there with Ken, and he was there with Lois, and he says, I thought everything was fine until I saw you last night. Then I knew there must be something between us, even if it's only an ocean. Oh.
I had to come and be like, woman, you are driving him out of the country. He is leaving the country because he can't stand to be in the same country with you right now.
It's just so heartbreaking. Oh,
It really, like, it is one of those that's, said at the beginning of this is such a chick flick. It really is, but it does get at that romance. There is a reason why, that's the film that Nora Ephron chose in Sleepless in Seattle.
exactly.
Like it's incredibly romantic and moving. And yeah, like I honestly, this was one of my favorite films when I was an adolescent. Back before I became the cold, hard, cynical bitch that we all know. And I showed it, I don't remember what age I was, but I showed it at like a birthday party. So it was a bunch of adolescent girls. And looking back, I'm just like, wow, I had a lot of just confidence in myself or some, because I'm just going to show this film from the 1950s to a bunch of adolescent girls. And no, everyone was crying by the end of the movie. Like everybody, bunch of like 12-year-olds were crying at the end of this film. And that's like, it is one of those, like, even watching this film, it's like I've seen this movie so many times. It's like I it's emotional, but whatever. I was sobbing by the end of the movie. I was like, it's so beautiful. It does, it gets you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you brought up Sleepless in Seattle, which is a movie that I love. I saw that probably 5 times when it was in the theater. I love that movie so much. And that was actually what got me to watch An Affair to Remember, because it's very, very heavily inspired by it. It's not the same story, which I also really appreciate, but it's definitely inspired. And they show clips of An Affair to Remember throughout Sleepless in Seattle. It's funny because there's one part that it's Meg Ryan and Rosie O'Donnell's characters watching the movie, and there's 2 clips that are shown totally out of order, and I'm just like, oh, that's weird. But because I watched that again last night too. But there's also, so you have Jonah's friend, who I think is played by Gabby Hoffman, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a part where she's watching An Affair to Remember, and she's like 8 years old, and she's sobbing and dabbing her eyes with tissues. She's like, this is the best movie I ever saw in my whole life.
That's so true.
Like, oh, and I love that. I love that it's just kind of this timeless, ageless movie that girls of all ages can love and enjoy. And yeah.
It gets you. It gets you. Yeah. So let's see. Any final thoughts about An Affair to Remember? It is like, it's such a beautiful film. I love it. I'm glad that we got to talk about it. I'm amazed we haven't talked about it before. It's such a classic. It is one of those, it's enduring. It's endured for quite a long time. I think in part actually because of Sleepless in Seattle, but it's been a fairly enduring film.
Yeah, I think that I think that it already was, it was still loved and well known even in the 90s, before Sleepless in Seattle came along, but that really kind of cemented it as not just a good movie to watch, but as an essential one. And I think Nora Ephron gets all the credit for that. I just wanted to also mention that this movie did get nominated for 4 Academy Awards. The original from 1939 actually was nominated for 6. But yeah, this was nominated for 4. So it was nominated for original score, original song, which was the song An Affair to Remember, which Terry sings in the movie. And then costume design and cinematography.
It's a beautiful film. Like, we've even talked about some of those shots, but also just like the costuming, the colors. It's one of those, it's interestingly enough, because some of those 1950s sort of brightly colored films feel almost unreal. So like it's too much. There were times where they were just like, we're just going to put all the color on the screen, but it's very well designed. Like the grandmother's villa is very muted and elegant, and not like, it's not sumptuous, but it's also not barren, right? It's very, you do kind of like Terry says at one point, like, oh, I could live here, and you're just like, yeah, I want to live there. Like it just seems so wonderful, like this place out of time. And so all of that kind of design, the set design, the costuming, the colors, Everything just feels very real and lived in some ways. It's a beautiful film. It is available to
really
stream on Hoopla, I believe, and it's available to rent. And also, I found my DVD of it again.
Yeah, just come on over to one of our houses because we both own this movie.
Yeah, I was almost very upset because I was like, my DVD collection is an absolute disaster, but I have everything that's just all over the place. But I was like, no, I know that I own An Affair to Remember. I can picture the image on the disc. Like I know that I own it. So it was buried like way back in one of my folds. I was like, oh, thank God.
I'm so glad you found it.
Definitely have An Affair to Remember.
I have a Cary Grant box set, and it's funny because all the movies that we're talking about this month, this is the only one that's in that box set.
There have been a lot of Cary Grant box sets, some of which I have one that's like all of his like a bunch of really early films. Some of which I barely remember, like 30 Day Princess, and Kiss and Make Up or something. I'm just like, I don't know what these films actually are. I probably watched them once.
That's pretty funny.
So I think that will close us out for this week. And next week we are easing our way into spooky season with Arsenic and Old Lace, which again, I'm shocked that we have not actually talked about this film. So yeah, going back in time a little bit in terms of Cary Grant's career, but I love this one. I'm looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun, very silly, very dark, and also about Brooklyn. Takes place in Brooklyn, so get to see what Brooklyn looks like in the late 1930s.
Very nice. It is not available to stream for free anywhere, but that's okay.
It's available for purchase on the Criterion Collection now, as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing next week. And of course, we want to thank our wonderful patrons, who include Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. And thank you again so much for supporting us, for continuing to support us so we don't have to bow to corporate overlords. Our Patreon is patreon.com/citizendame. You get episodes early. You also get our bonus episodes. We are finishing up the Alfred Hitchcock Presents series, and we will be starting a new one very, very, very soon. So be certain to tune in for that. That one's going to be fun as well. Yep. And of course, we have our Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/citizendame. And you can get in touch with us a multitude of ways. We have our website, citizendame, that's citizendamepod.com. And we have reviews and editorials and a bunch of different things up there, as well as our episodes. And of course, you can email us. Our email is citizendamepod@gmail.com. And you can get in touch with us via Instagram and Blue Sky at citizendamepod and Letterboxd at citizendame. And of course, you can get in touch with us individually. Karen, where are you?
I am on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
And I am on Instagram and Letterboxd at LH Business. So that will close us out for this week. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
Oh, God. Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr. Is it Kerr or Kerr?
Kerr.
Okay. She's going to meet him at the top of the Empire State Building. Only she got hit by a taxi. And he waited and waited. And it was raining, I think. And then she's too proud to tell him that she's crippled. And he's too proud to find out why she doesn't come. But he comes to see her anyway. I forget why, but oh, it's so amazing when he comes to see her. Because he doesn't even notice that she doesn't get up to say hello. And he's very bitter. And you think that he's just gonna walk out the door and never know why. She's just lying there, you know, like on the couch with this blanket over her shriveled little legs. And
Are you all right?
She's fine.
And suddenly he goes, I saw the painting. And he like goes to the bedroom. And he looks and he comes out and he looks at her and he kind of just, they know, and then they hug and it's.
That's a chick's movie.